or is it? I don't remember the very first time I heard about old Ks. It would have been around the early, I've got a bit of hat here going on there. Would have been around the early noughts, 2005. But what I do remember about them is the mystique and the allure around them, especially being a young student at Jizz School many years ago. And all the drummers kind of like, the drummers that have been through before you or come across would talk about old Ks. And I think they either really liked them or really didn't like them. I remember my drum teacher at the time didn't really like them at all. And he said he had like a stack of them, a lot of them. I'm just watching the cat, she's gonna knock the stand over, so if everything falls down. Yeah, sorry. So I remember my drum teacher, he said he had a stack of them and he used to go on about how shit they were and he pretty much got rid of them. And he had them since the 70s and so forth. But then I remember other drummers coming through. Nick Gaffney was one of them, a New Zealand drummer from the band Curry Knife Fight when he was in Christchurch at the time. And he had some old Ks. And they were really nice sounding cymbals. Like I still have recordings of him playing these cymbals that were really nice. Anyway, the first time I really became obsessed with them, well not obsessed, yeah, well obsessed would probably be the right word for that time period, would be around the kind of 2005, 2006 when I was about like a kind of a first year. And I remember there was like a Modern Drummer magazine that had, I think it was like Zorro the drummer and Lenny Kravitz on the front cover, and it was like 2003 maybe, and there was like an article from John Riley about old Ks, a couple page spree talking about them. And there were like pictures in there of like all these old Ks, and they just look so much different to the cymbals that you see today, or the cymbals that you were seeing at the time anyway. And this is also around the time that the K Constantinoples came out as well. So while you probably never really saw old Ks, you were seeing these Constantinople cymbals, which are great. And I didn't really ever own one until I got that Philly Joe Jones ride that I showed last video. Anyway, so they became like a real obsession, I think, because you never saw them around, but you always heard about them, especially in New Zealand, in Christchurch. You never saw them. You always heard about them, and you knew that they were being used on all these records and so forth. So you just like really wanted to get your hands on one. And I remember, I think the first time I really saw one was there was a drummer called I think it was Drew Norris, who was at university. And the rumor had been that he had swapped a B8 Splash for an old K. And I remember him going to his drum room and he had this old K set up and he was like playing it, or he was just kind of hitting it around and stuff like that while he was playing along to some rock shit. And I remember it didn't sound very nice and it looks very, like beaten up and old. It did, and that, what I'm going to with that is the inconsistency of the old K. So whoever he got it from obviously didn't like it enough that they were willing to get rid of it for a Splash. And I just remember it had this kind of like, not that Wuhan's are bad, but it just had this like real kind of tinny Wuhan sound. If you remember like the very early Wuhans, and that kind of like harsh kind of Chinese complex kind of sound. Do you remember that? You probably weren't even born then, were you? No. So what I'm going to talk about today is my old Ks and where they all came from, and then my kind of thoughts on them and so forth like that. I was chasing the old K dream for ages, and the first closest symbol that I got to an old K was an Istanbul 25th anniversary cymbals, and I bought two of them. And I remember I got them from cymbalsonly.com, and I remember seeing the pictures and I was like, shucks, they look like old Ks. Like the picture that I talked about from that Modern Drummer with John Riley, how he had that image of that old K, and I was like, man, these cymbals look exactly the same, they're going to sound great. What I really thought they would have was that kind of click sound, the one I'm talking about, the click sound, with like a real nice wash to click ratio. But surprising to me, the cymbals, I still have one of them, but I remember at the time, oh god, the claws, they just sounded too kind of washy and stuff like that, so I didn't really like them. And I ended up selling one off, and I regretted it because it was the nicer one, and I've since played them. I'm like, actually no, my ears weren't that finely tuned, and they actually weren't too bad. Drew Norris had one, he played it, soaked it for a BX Splash, played it. Didn't sound very nice to me at the time. I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. But yeah, such is life. So my first old K is not this one. My first one was, I bought it from in Christchurch, or maybe I swapped it with a guy called Ewald. And if you're from Christchurch and you're a drummer from Christchurch, you know Ewald. He had like a garage full of drums, cymbals and stuff like that, and you'd go around to his house and his dogs would scare you and bite you, and then you'd either swap some gear or buy some gear or sell some gear. I got some really nice 602 hats from him, and I sold them straight away, like some old, this is before 602s were reissued, and I pretty much sold them straight away because I was like, oh, you know, I think I sold them so I could buy some Stanton Moore Bosphorus fat hats, which are also very nice, and I got rid of because I'm an idiot. But yeah, so I went around to Ewald's house one day, and Ewald knew that we were all like young drummers, were obsessed with old Ks, and I think he called me up, maybe, or I called him up, and I was just like, hey man, like, what have you got? Because at the time, if you watched my last video, I didn't really have a lot of money, and so I was just constantly flipping cymbals, like finding ways to get new cymbals. And so I would call him up, I think, or he would call me up and he'd say, oh, you know, this is what I've got, because he knew that I was an idiot and I was just like funding his cigarette habit. So I went around to his house and he had this, I think it was like a 14-inch or a 12-inch old K, and it was a piece of shit. So really what it was if you know enough about old Ks, you know that they weren't very consistent. So you'd have maybe like a couple of good ones out of a batch, and then the rest would just be shit, and they would just be, no one would play them, or they would just buy them and, you know, whatever. They just shipped them over and got rid of them to wherever. And I remember John Riley talks about that in his article as well, as he would wait till he got a phone call from a music store, and then the guy would say, yep, cool, but remember all the salespeople have first dibs. So by the time he got there, all the good ones were gone, and there was like a stack of ones that were just shit, that he deemed unplayable, but whatever. So yeah, went around Ewald. He had it was like a 12 or a 14-inch, and it had like a wing nut in the center, in the cymbal stand part. And I think it was cracked, and he'd put it in there to kind of like heal the crack, or just, you know, aesthetically, it didn't look very good. I've got a picture of it. I saw a picture of it quite recently, actually. It was very, very thin. Like, you could like malleable, you could bend it and everything. Very trashy. It really reminded me of like a Bill Stewart type cymbal, and I literally got it because I was just like, this is my first. I wanted to pop my old K cherry, virginity. So I got it. I never played it with anything. I think I owned it for like a few weeks, and then I chucked it on Trade Me and sold it. And I sold it for about $250, I think. I just wanted to recoup my losses. And I remember the guy came around to buy it. The guy came around to pick it up when I sold it. And he was picking it up on behalf of someone, maybe his son or his nephew or some shit. And I remember he came around, and he'd already paid me the money via bank transfer. And I was like, here you go. And he's like, is this it? And I was like, yep, see you later, and close the door. Well, I didn't close the door, but I was like, yeah, that's it. Any questions? And he's like, oh, no, I just thought, you know, whoever was buying it was talking about it so much. And I just imagined this poor old guy had to go back and be like, you know, the disappointment, or he just was so confused about everything. So that was my first old K. And the second one I've got is in there, but I'll just go, because I've stacked them up piece by piece out of my cymbal case. So I'll go through there. I also have another one that I thought was in my old K, because I got like a Zildjian cymbal carry case, like a hard case for my old Ks. But one of my old Ks isn't in there, and it's in my storage locker somewhere, so unfortunately that's going to have to miss out. Who cares? This is like an 18-inch crash ride I got from Trade Me. It sounds better with sticks, I think. I haven't played this for... When was the last time I played this? I don't even know. I bought this off Trade Me. I don't remember how much I got it for, but it would have been a steal. And it had a tiny, tiny crack in the bell there. This is the stamp, you can see it. Just so you can see there. Hello, stamp. It had a tiny crack there, and I cut it out, shaved it out myself. And it's, hey, whoa, I knew this was going to happen. You just need to get out, cat. Yeah. It's all black on the bottom. I don't know how that happened, or what happened. I think it's just dirty. I don't know, but it's, if you can kind of see, it's like completely tarnished and black, but it's just kind of normal on this side. And it's got that green shit. Yeah, I bought it off Trade Me from a guy who lives in a kind of rural town just outside of Christchurch called Darfield. I remember that much. Probably around 2016. Yeah, like I just bought it because it was on there and it was cheap. And I don't know if he knew about the crack in it or not, but it's not a bad cymbal. I mean, I just don't really play it. I don't know if the camera really does it justice, but that was an 18 I got. Actually, yeah, maybe it was 2018 that I got it. Anyway, there it is. Oh yeah, so this is the second old K I ever bought. I got this in Wellington. I'll just bring the stamp up close and you can see it, so then you don't have to worry about identifying it. There we go. It's clean on the back with a massive signature because the dude was probably blind. Yeah, this was the second one I bought. The first real old K that I ever bought. And I got it from a drummer, I think, called Corey Champion, who was a Wellington guy. And I remember buying this really, really well because I had just moved to Wellington in 2016. And I didn't know anyone, and I kind of just started to play drums again, or thought about playing drums again. And then this old K came out. Same as on Trade Me, like went on for like $800. No one bid on it, and I was the only one that bid on it, and I ended up buying it for $800. And I got real excited. I remember being real excited about going to this guy's house because I didn't know any other drummers in Wellington. I wasn't playing drums at the time. I'd moved there for work, for another job. And I went around to his house, and on the way there I was like, man, cool, like this guy owns an old K, like I was thinking Cymbalholics, and I was like, man, he's gonna be a real cool dude, he's gonna want to talk about drums and stuff like that, and like, you know, he's gonna know the guy I can talk shit about with cymbals, because he had like quite a few of his cymbals on Trade Me. I think he had like another old A, like a 40s A or something like that I also really wanted, but I was like, no, I'll just buy this. Anyway, went around to his house. I was like, hey man, like what's up? My name's Rob. And he's like, cool, here's your cymbal, see you later. And I was like, oh, you know, like, I was kind of interested in the other cymbal you had as well. Can I try it? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And I had it, and I was like, oh, you know, it's kind of cool. Like, I can't remember if I liked it or not. And I was like, I haven't got the cash right now, but I'd definitely be keen if you chuck it back on Trade Me. And he's like, yeah, well, whatever. Like, he just wanted to get rid of me. And I was like, kind of gutted because I really, really wanted a friend to talk cymbals about. And he kind of just blew me off. So that's cool. But yeah, and then later that night, I had it in my car, and I was with my partner at the time, and we were driving around, and she like didn't know I played drums, and she reached into the back and she felt it, and she's like, what the hell is this? And she was quite drunk because we'd been out for dinner, and she like pulled it out, and she was like hitting it, and like, well, she was just like laughing and kind of hitting it. I was like, oh, please don't. Like, this is a really thick cymbal, by the way. This is probably like 3,000 grams, maybe. It's very, very thick. And I was just like, please don't hit it like that. It's, you know, you must treat it with care. It's an old K. And then I taught her about cymbals and stuff like that, and she was like, oh, okay, now I get it. This was over a couple of months to a year. I think she got really into cymbals, well, not really into cymbals, but into cymbals as well. To the point where in the bedroom, she wanted to hang like an L80, L20 Zildjian, or L20 or L80, like, and I was like, why would we hang that? That's dumb. That's like a practice cymbal. We want to hang like an old A or an old K or something. But yeah, the other thing about this is the bell. I don't know if you can see. It's very kind of inconsistent. Yeah, so it's like kind of tapered on one side. I don't know why that is. Bell things. But anyway, yeah, this is my first old K. Very nicely hand hammered. Very, very, well, quite heavy compared to most. I'll just try to get it so I can get the side. Of a crash. A really nice, again, I don't know if you can really hear because I use my phone camera, but really nice stick sound, which I really enjoy. So that's that. Nice cymbal. There's my second old K that I've got. Never saw the light of day after that. What's next? This one is a recent purchase as well. This was an old, is this an old K? Yeah, it is an old K. I got this one this year from a guy, I think I talked about it in my last video on Trade Me, who sells cymbals. This stamp. Yeah, you can see it. So he sells cymbals by the seashore, and he listed this one. This is the first one I got from this year. I got this one for quite cheap, like around $900, I think $800, $900. He listed it for like $600. I got it for that much. And boy, it's a really, really, really nice cymbal. I also think it says as well because, well, from memory, is because it's got the same kind of reddish. I'll bring the other one over in a second. Reddish hue, but really, really nice old K. This is probably one of the nicest ones I've ever well, definitely the nicest one out of my collection, I think. They're all individual children, but this one I really, really like. In real good condition as well, apart from the green stains. But yeah, not much to say about this one. Yeah, nice cymbal. Another Butte. I'll get the other one as well because where is it? Here it is. Here. I talked about this one last time. I think this is the other one I bought it from as well. So from Peter's Drum City. I don't know who Peter is. I don't care. The stamp. This one has a lot of lathe chatter on it as well. There's the stamp. You can see. You can barely see the stamp on this one actually. Even I can barely see it. Wasn't pressed down too hard. So I got this from the same dude. Again, $800 New Zealand, $900 New Zealand. What a steal. So that's kind of cool because with the old Ks as well, like if you can get them for cheap, people will buy them, but I myself wouldn't buy one. Well, yeah, probably wouldn't buy one these days unless I could hear it, unless I get it for like under $1,000, unless there's a nice sound file with it, with no comping, just ride cymbal playing. I probably wouldn't buy it, just because you can get ones that sound like crap. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. But again, it depends. This one here is a 22 that I got from Steve Maxwell, who I buy a lot of cymbals off these days and who will hopefully one day give me a discount because I just bought those two 400th anniversary cymbals from him, Children's. I got this 2020, I want to say 2021, 2022. I was overseas in Australia at the time. 2021 I was in Australia, overseas for work. I had money. This came up on Reverb, and I think at that time it was very, very rare to see. For some reason there was just like a real drought of 22-inch old Ks, and I was like, man, like probably drinking, man, like old Ks are really, they're just going away. Like everyone's breaking them, whatever. So I saw this Steve Maxwell's, bought it, and sent it back to New Zealand to be there when I got back. And as well as that, I think I bought some pre-split cymbals from him because I really, really like pre-split cymbals a lot. And that will be another video for myself to do. Where's the stamp on this MF? I did have a stamp. The thing I like about this one is the there it is, the lathing as well. And there's one thing I kind of wanted to discuss in this video. If you can see the stamp with this one, and where's my 30-year-old K, my ride. So yeah, bought this from Steve Maxwell, about $3,000 New Zealand. Came back, was waiting for me in New Zealand when I got back a few months later. Got some tape residue on the end of it. One thing I heard recently in a podcast, I think it was a podcast with Paul Francis, and he was talking about the older Zildjians. K Zildjians used to have this really, really fine lathing on them, as you can kind of see here. So this is the second K that I bought. You can kind of see the real fine lathing on it. And the reason they thickened the lathing up and made it thick with two C's was because the A Zildjians were taking off in America, or like worldwide, and they really wanted to compete with them aesthetically as well. So the whole idea was to make them look like A zildjians by making the lathing a bit thicker. And I don't know if that's a shan or not, which stands for a shit yarn, but yeah, it would kind of make sense. So that was just an interesting one. There. So now, because I don't have my other one, we'll just talk about the hi-hats. These hi-hats are, they leave a lot to be desired. I got one of these pairs from Trade Me. This is this pair here, I'll talk about first. Man, super thin. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know one of those people that likes to bend my cymbals, but you can see it's like super thin. I was like, shit, that's gonna break. So this is the bottom one. This is what I would use as the bottom. And this is the top. Here are the stamps. Boom. And I'm always worried that I'm not gonna find the stamp, and then I'm gonna be like, shucks, I got ripped off. I didn't even know. I'm such an idiot. I got these off Trade Me, I think for like $300, $400. The guy, I think, knew what they were, but just wanted to get rid of them. And I have a feeling why. So you'll see there's two little dinties here and on here. So when he took images of these hi-hats, as I'd call them, I don't know if they're actually hi-hats or not, but I use them as hi-hats. Well, I don't actually use them, they're just in storage. He had cropped the pictures such that the top half of the cymbal was never in the image, and I was like, man, that's kind of weird, because if you look here, this stamp is actually where the spit is here. And so he sent it to me, and I was like, hey man, like I just, is there anything wrong with these cymbals? Like they're just, something doesn't feel right. And he's like, no, they're all good. I was like, are there any cracks with keyholing? He's like, no, all good. I was like, are there any flea bites? He's like, no, all good. As you can see, there's a little bit of keyholing here, but I didn't really care too much about it. And so they arrived, and I noticed micro cracks here and here. Like one had formed here, and one was like very, very tiny with the naked eye. Like I have very good vision, so I could see it. And I was pissed off because I'd gone to him and said, hey, is there anything wrong with these? Because like if you watch my last video, I don't like to buy cymbals to fix them up unless maybe they're Istanbuls, pre-splits, because I like, they're fine. But I don't like buying cymbals and having to go through the admin of having to fix them up. So they had cracks in them. I got really angry. Well, not really angry. I was annoyed, and I cut them out, and then I filed them out myself. And I'll probably do like a stupid video on these later. They're really, really thin cymbals. This is the one I would use as the bottom. Probably more like crashes. I think they're just two crashes, and I just use them as hi-hats. They do, when I played these once, they did kind of remind me of Max Roach type sound, like a real old Max Roach, Dizzy Gillespie, like 40s jazz thing. So I was like, cool, maybe you'll keep. But yeah, that's just what they do. Stick around there. I'm really gutted I didn't bring that other freaking cymbal, because I'll talk about it, and then we'll talk about some other stuff. This pair is also a pair of hi-hats from the same era. I think these are actually hi-hats. And the reason I bought these was because they still have the sticker intact. Let's just undo them here. As you can see, it's still got the... See, I'd never seen these before. Sorry, these last ones here, I got them probably around 2016, 2018 was the time I got these. I just like to reference that for laughs, for shits and gigs. These I bought off Facebook Marketplace when I was still, I think I was in the Cymbalholics group on Facebook Marketplace when I still had social media. And again, I just had money to spend. I saw these and they had the sticker, and I was like, shucks, I've never seen Zildjians, K-Zildjians with the stickers still on them. You can see them today. I think there's actually, as of today, at 5th of August 2023, I have seen a ride cymbal on Steve Maxwell's Reverb. I think it's like a 22-inch with the sticker and the ink stamp on the backside of the cymbal that says, genuine Turkish da-da-da. He's selling it for like $7,000 New Zealand, so there's no way I'm going to buy it. Actually, probably will. But I bought these, and here are the stamps, just so you can see. Again, probably hi-hats. I don't remember the guy I bought them off. He wasn't that big of a Cymbalholic guy that I remembered his name. But anyway, I got this shipped to my work, and I thought that was a smart idea. And I was like talking about it at work. I was like, man, I'm getting these new cymbals. And again, I wasn't working as a musician. I was working somewhere else. And I was like, I'm getting these new cymbals and they're going to be really cool for my collection because I've got the stickers on them. And it's going to be sick and everyone's going to be so excited. And so everyone was like, knew about this anticipation for these cymbals with these stickers on it. And then the cymbals finally arrived. And I unpackaged them and I did like a big presentation to everyone in my office. And I was like, look, everyone, stickers. And they were like, fuck, that's so cool. But not really, they were just pretending. And then I had to go out and do something. I think I had to present at a meeting. So I had to do preparation for the meeting and then do the meeting itself. And when I came back into the office, my boss was like, unbeknownst to me, they didn't know I was coming into the room. They're like, oh, should we rip the sticker off just as a joke? And I was just like, fucking no, can't, like, just don't do it. So that was a thing, and I was like, man, I wonder if I'd actually walked in and then they had actually ripped the stickers off as a joke, and what would have become of that scenario. But that's just life. Anyway, so yeah, more these are more hi-hat-y, but very, very, very thin. Not as thin as the other ones, but still, these would probably be the ones that I would play if I was going to use them as hi-hats. Probably that would be the top. But again, I probably never will, because if I put them in the hi-hat stand and the stickers will get done. And I actually think these don't fit properly in my DW 5000. But I have definitely played them before and tested them out because, yeah, maybe I've slightly opened them up a bit. So that's that. That's my old K's collection. Are they really worth it? It really depends. Like when you're a young kind of drummer and you're starting out in the cymbal collecting game, and I don't know why anyone would, because it's all expense for no reward. You spend a shit ton of money. You go through daily, like looking at websites. You see something, you're like, shit, I don't have that yet. And like I said in my last video, I've got like over 100 something cymbals. Like most of them are very rare and vintage. Like if anything happened to them, I wouldn't be able to replace them, or it would be very, very, very expensive too. So you go through daily, you'll see something, you'll raise the funds, or if you're like me, you have funds set aside to purchase it. You'll buy the cymbal, you'll wait. Everyone knows that anticipation of like a month waiting for FedEx or whatever, or UK Post to send it over, and it finally comes over. You open the box, you play it, and you're like, man, this sounds really good. Or you're like, man, this sounds like shit. And then that's done, and then the next one comes along. So it's just a continuous cycle of being fucked around and losing a lot of money. But it is fun because it's like, I do enjoy talking to people about cymbals and like comparing collections, which is why I kind of start doing these videos and stuff like that, and like putting my testing my cymbals on my YouTube channel, because I do get people like hitting me up and saying like, hey Rob, like would you sell that? And I'm like, no, I would never sell that. Or they were just like, oh cool, like they ask where you got it from, or like, oh they can help you identify things about it, or they say, well, that's really like interesting that the layering pattern that you've got on that cymbal or stuff like that. And you can kind of have a conversation with someone that's fucked in the head like you and likes to collect discs of metal, and it's fine. But is it really worth it? It depends. Like I like this is the plight of collecting cymbals, is I like having a collection, but it's very, very rare, especially where I'm from in New Zealand, that you have people that you can meet up with or talk to, especially where I'm in Christchurch, the South Island, and you can talk to people about it and you can compare collections and stuff like that. It was a little bit different when I lived in the North Island. When I lived in the North Island, Steve Black, I would see him in Auckland, hang out with him. Mark Queenan, I think was his name. I hung out with him a few times. He had like some really, really nice old Ks. There was another dude called Anthony Hopkins, not the actor, he's a drummer, who passed away not long after I met him. It would have been like 2009-ish, or 2010, 2011. And I actually ended up buying an old 8 off him on Trade Me. And he came around and delivered it because, like me, he was like, I was going to say a pathetic loser. But no, he was a really lovely dude. And he came around and like delivered it, and we hung out and we drank green tea and we talked about cymbals, and he bought some of his snare drums around as well. I think by that time he was on his last legs. So that would have been like one of his last outings. But I do very vividly remember that, hanging out with him, and I was like, cool, he's a cool dude and stuff like that. And I think Mark Queenan came around as well. Mark, if you're watching this, I'm sorry if I can't pronounce your name properly. I haven't seen you for years, and I haven't bought anything off you for years, so feel free to correct me if you ever watch this, which you probably won't. But I remember you came around as well when Anthony was there, or Tony Hopkins, and you bought some of your old Ks, and I think you bought some of your snare drums as well, which was cool for me, because like, again, I didn't have much at that time in terms of my gear. I was only just starting to accumulate my gear. So that was really cool, like having that community to hang out with. And again, like I hang out with Steve Black quite a bit. I'd go around to his house. I'd take my cymbals around there, and we'd just like talk about drums and cymbals. And like what I found is the first time I kind of met him was he was a member of Cymbalholics under Zenstat, and I had bought a and I'm digressing completely from my K talk here, but yeah, I had bought a 22-inch Feisty Sound Creation Dark Ride of Trade Me for like $600, which was like ridiculous money, and this is like 2010, 2011. And I think I posted it on Cymbalholics, and I was like, "Hey everyone, like this is me. I'm in the ranks of Feisty now. I've got like a really nice Feisty because like yeah, I think the only thing I had before that was my 602 hi-hats, and I knew that sound creations were a big deal. And Steve got in touch with me and was like, "Oh wow, like you live in Auckland, let's hang out." So we hung out, and that was really cool. And I saw him before I left Auckland as well. So his health was a bit not great, so hopefully he's doing all right. And I should email him at some point. Anyway, yeah, so that was really cool to have that kind of community. So what I'm talking about here is like, is it kind of worth it? Like if you're like anything, like if you pump heaps of money into cars and you want to be part of a community, like with cymbals, it's the same thing. It's just you can't. The cymbal game is a lot different in terms of like flipping stuff. With old Ks, it's a little bit different, and just going back to the old K thing again, because you can post an old K on Reverb or like eBay or whatever, and if you do it for a reasonable price, it's guaranteed to be lapped up. You don't even need a sound file. Like if it looks like pretty good, like this, I imagine some people would see it and they'd just be like, "That looks amazing, I'm gonna buy it." Whereas if they were to see this one here, they would be like, "Well, it doesn't look that great, but I'll probably still buy it anyway." They always sell, and I think they fluctuate. The market kind of fluctuates. So again, Steve has a website where he talks about the prices of cymbals, how they go up and down with time and so forth. I don't really follow that kind of stuff anymore. I just buy for the sake of buying. But there's that whole thing about the price of old Ks going up and down. And this all kind of started for me was hearing about old Ks and how mysterious and mystique they were, and just wanting to like own one purely because I was a jazz drummer at the time, and being like, "Cool, I own an old K. Like, look at me. I'm definitely a jazz drummer now." And it just became that obsession. And like with anything with cymbals, you're just chasing the dragon, trying to get the next big thing. And I'm always like, "I'll never ever buy another cymbal. This is my last one." And then I find some 602s on Trade Me, and I'm like, "Shucks, I need them blue labels." Yeah. So that's really it. I probably would never buy another old K again. I say that, but I probably will, to be honest. But at the moment, probably not. If I was gonna splash out on cymbals now, like, and I wanted that kind of vintage old K kind of vibe, I would much rather go pre-split cymbals, because they are more consistent. They're very nice cymbals. They look cool. The story behind them is also cool, and everything about them is just cool. So yeah, that's that. Pretty fucking boring video, to be honest. But I just wanted to talk about my old Ks. And yeah, sweet. Next video, who knows? Probably be more old Ks.